What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Every year in the February to March timeframe, there's a little lull in the sports calendar between the Super Bowl and between the beginning of March Madness, where we have regular season NBA, regular season hockey. There's kind of the All-Star breaks are in there, but nothing super exciting. Well, we've made it through because the day that this podcast comes out is the beginning of March Madness. Thursday, March 21st, starting with Michigan State and Mississippi State, MSU versus MSU at 12:15 Eastern. And I am pumped. It's one of my favorite sporting events of the year. It's great for basketball and gambling and just having awesome college basketball on that really matters from noon till midnight for 4 straight days this week. And then next week, having some exciting basketball on too, and then going into the Final Four and all that. And then we hit the NFL draft. So we got about 3 March Madness podcasts coming your way, starting with today's March Madness kickoff, where Matt and I are going to go over our favorite players to watch, the first round upsets that we're picking, our Final Four, and our national champion. We'll be back next week to go over the first couple rounds and preview the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. The week after that, we're going to do Final Four and the championship. And then next month, April, we are going to jump into the NFL draft full speed. So we're going to have about 4 or 5 draft episodes. We're going to do the My Guys, the big storylines, the mock draft, and we'll do some draft review stuff as well. So 2 of the best months of podcasting, I think, coming up here, 2 of our favorite events to do back to back, and then into NBA playoffs. So we've made it through the lull. It's time for some really exciting stuff. So let's go grab Matt and let's talk March Madness. Let's go. All right, Matt is here, ready to talk some March Madness basketball. Matt, the most important question before we start the podcast: have you completed your bracket yet?
I have.
Excellent. Matt has followed the instructions.
Is it any good?
That's the thing about brackets is so the best place to be with your March Madness bracket is at 100% correct, like nailing the Final Four.
Right.
Getting the champion. The second best place to be with your March Madness bracket is to get absolutely nothing correct because there's so much chaos that you could not have possibly predicted it.
Yeah.
Anything else is just not as good. It's like 100% right or 100% wrong. And St. Peter's is playing Colorado in the national championship. And there's no in between. I'm glad you followed the instructions for the podcast and got your bracket done before we recorded, because I've talked to people. I'm like, oh yeah, who'd you pick in your bracket? And they're like, I don't know. I'll do it Thursday morning before the games start. And I'm like, you are probably a serial killer and an absolute psychopath if you can wait till Thursday morning to do your bracket. It ain't right. It ain't American.
I mean, hey, that period of time goes by pretty quick. You know, if you work traditional hours, right? The brackets get released Sunday night, and then you immediately go into your work week.
What did you do during work all week? Not
work.
Did you not do your bracket? This week is the biggest productivity loss week in pretty much the entire year, I believe. Because Monday through Wednesday, you have workers like filling out brackets, talking about brackets, thinking about brackets. And then tomorrow, so it's Wednesday night right now, the 20th. This is going to come out right around when the tournament starts on Thursday. And as soon as noon hits tomorrow, people who are working, especially because so many people work from home nowadays, the games are going to be on. So even if you're doing work, you're going to have the game on in the background or on your phone or on some kind of second screen thing. But it's a fun week. So I'm a tinkerer in all things. And this is always my problem in fantasy sports too, especially fantasy football. So I did my bracket on Monday and then I deleted it and redid it on Tuesday. And then I messed with it today and I picked some other teams and moved some stuff around. I'm very math oriented when it comes to filling out my bracket, which sounds boring to a lot of people, but I like to look at like all the historical averages and the stats and the data that suggests like, okay, who could win? How far should these teams go? And then Matt, on the other hand, told me that he picked his entire bracket completely based on vibes.
Yep.
This is like a good description for the two of us. And, we talked about this before, especially with the draft, the NFL draft coming up, is that we kind of tackle things from different angles where Matt's more on like gut feeling and like some of the more intangible stuff sometimes. And I'm like, no, this is what the math says. We must follow the math. But I fear that I followed the math into my own demise with this bracket. We're going to talk about who's in my final four and who my championship pick is. But there are multiple teams in my final four who are usually early casualties in March Madness, and I am not super confident in what I have done.
I made sure that I followed those rules.
That's usually that was one thing that was hard about picking upsets in this bracket, is that like Virginia was not good this year. They got knocked out in the first four last night. So I didn't have like Virginia. We didn't have like Iowa. Iowa always loses in the first round. So Purdue's here. Arizona's here. Those are teams you can typically pick against pretty early. But one thing that we don't have this year that I think makes the tournament really interesting is star power of individual players. If you're an NBA fan tuning into March Madness, you probably have not heard of the vast majority of guys you're going to be watching. We've talked about this a couple of times on the pod, but overall, this is an extremely weak draft class.
Yeah.
The draft class is bad. And even in a bad class, 6 of the top 10 prospects are either going to come from other countries or they're going to come from the G League. So not a lot of them playing in this tournament. One of the top 10 prospects in the NBA draft is on Colorado, who plays in the first 4 tonight and may or may not even make the tournament. And even if they do, he's a backup for Colorado. So, there's no super freshman. There's no Zion. There's no Cade Cunningham, like the guys we traditionally talk about in this segment of the podcast. And there's not even like a Trae Young or like a Jason Tatum, like someone who might be a little bit further down on the draft board where you're like, okay, this guy has a lot of potential. And we could see that in March Madness. Like there's not a ton of draft stuff at stake. I mean, there's a couple guys like on Kentucky and maybe some like sophomores and juniors who can improve their draft stock, but we're not talking about like top 5 NBA changing guys here.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this when I was going through like who I wanted to put on my players to watch list. Who, in your opinion, is the most famous college basketball player right now?
Man, probably Zach Edey. Well, men's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
thing, though, is like, we're talking about the men's tournament. The women's tournament has a ton of star power.
Yeah.
With Caitlin Clark and Paige Buchers and Angel Reese. And like, I think the casual fan can probably name more women's college basketball players than men's right now.
Yeah.
I was sitting down with my parents earlier. I asked my dad, I was like, who do you think the most famous college basketball player in the world is right now? And he was like, I have no idea. So I agree. It's probably Zach Edey. I also wrote down Bronny James, who LeBron James' son is at USC, who did not make the tournament. And Bronny James averaged all of 4.8 points per game for them this season.
Yep.
So he's famous for other reasons. Zach Edey is on my list of guys to talk about. He might be like the back-to-back Wooden Award winner for college basketball. He might be a second rounder in the NBA. Yeah. Like if you look at big boards right now, he's kind of in the middle of the second round. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. So it's
he's a guy that I I almost feel like I can see him kind of sneaking into the back end of the first, just based on like it's a good team that just needs a role player,
And he's
right?
7'4". He's
Yeah,
massive.
yeah, because like he's not gonna be like an overwhelming force in the NBA. He just doesn't have the athletic abilities to like, ever be on the levels of Embiid, Jokic, Giannis, like those guys.
Victor Wembanyama.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Who did you
So
do you see what Wembanyama did the other day? He had like
you're gonna
30.
have to be more specific.
Yeah, because it's like every freaking day with him right now.
Yeah.
He had like 37 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, and 7 blocks in a
Yeah.
game the other day. Now that it's later in the season, he's just having like monster stat line after monster stat line.
Yeah.
It's getting to the point where it's insane.
Yeah. Like he's got his sea legs under him now. Like he's
It's
kind of
legitimately
started to grow accustomed to the NBA.
it's legitimately scary what he's doing at this point.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go to our players to watch list first.
Mm-hmm.
Is Zach Edey on your list?
I came up with 4, and he was one of them. So
Okay. I have 3, and I do have Zach Edey.
yeah.
So let's start with him just for a little bit. We don't have to go super in depth on him, but
Yeah.
so Zach Edey's the center from Purdue. If you guys don't know, he's 7'4", 285 pounds, probably the best player in college basketball.
Yeah.
3-time Big Ten Player of the Year. He's won the Wooden, the Naismith. He might win the Wooden Award again for best player. He just got his second consensus All-American pick, like unanimous All-American pick. Led the NCAA in scoring this year, 24.4 points per game, to go along with 11.7 rebounds and 2.2 blocks. He's also basically the leader in every single advanced stat, like defensive efficiency. If you go on like the college basketball, the NCAA website, they have some like irreplaceable player, like MVP kind of stats, and he just leads in like everything. But the thing about him and the thing about Purdue, so Purdue's a 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
In his time at Purdue as the star center, so he's been a star there for 3 years. He's 3-time Big Ten Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Last year they lost to 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson in the first round, who didn't have a guy over 6'6". The year before that they lose to 15 seed St. Peter's in the Sweet 16. And then his sophomore year, his first year as a starter, they lose to 13 seed North Texas in the first round. So this is his last chance as a senior. He's been one of the best players in college basketball for years. And I think that's going to be one of the really fun storylines to watch is Purdue and like, can he have any tournament success? Because they've basically, he's like 2-3 in the tournament in 3 years as a consistently high, like 1 or 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Can they have any kind of run or success with him? Or is he just going to leave college being like, wow, that was one of the best college players we've ever seen. And he never made it past the Sweet 16 and they lost to double-digit seeds every single year.
It's kind of mind-boggling because like this is a case where like reality has truly challenged the law of averages. Okay, they lost to the 15 seed last year. They surely can't lose to the 16. Nope. Yes, they fucking can.
Has Purdue lost to like every single seed? They're probably going to become like the first school. I'm going to see that stat eventually. It's like Purdue has lost to every single seed in the NCAA tournament.
Well, yeah, because they're the only ones that have lost to a 16, aren't they?
Virginia did too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But Virginia is like the same fucking school.
Yeah.
Except
they're going to do it in the same year.
Yeah, but Virginia like lost to a 16 seed and then had a championship run. Yeah. So that's the same thing with Purdue. It's like you lost to a 16 seed last year. Does that fuel you? Or do you come back and like either A, lose to a 16 seed again this year, who is like Grambling or Mountain, whatever, whoever's playing in that 16 seed play-in game? Or like, do you lose down the road? Can you make it? Like, can you make a run with these guys? Or is this just going to be Zach Edey's legacy? It's like, damn, he dominated the Big Ten for 4 years and couldn't win a goddamn NCAA tournament game.
Yeah. Well, and in fairness, like the Big Ten didn't do well in the tournament in those 4 years either. So
the Big Ten has been bad in the NCAA tournament. It's like crazy to think about though, because he also played with like Jaden Ivey. They had him on that team. Like he's had a lot of good players. Carson Edwards was on that team with him a couple years ago.
Yeah.
They've had good guards with him and stuff. There's no reason that they should be losing to these double-digit seeds all the time, except for the fact that they're Purdue. Who's the first guy on your list?
It's our old buddy.
Yes, I was hoping
Max Asmus.
Yeah, Max Asmus.
Yeah, like
the man whose name we can finally say after 4 years.
Right. He is playing for Texas now. He's a guard for Texas. And we call back to him because he was on some deep runs from his years at Oral Roberts. When this guy goes off, like he just totally takes over a game. He's not having as big of a year at Texas this year as he has in previous years at Oral Roberts, but I think that's a little bit to be expected with a little bit more talent around him. To me, this really just comes down to like, all right, you're at a bigger program. Like, can you put on just one more show and make a deep run?
That Oral Roberts run was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That, like, you want to feel old? That Oral Roberts run happened before my son was born. I didn't mention this in the preview, but my son turns 2 on Saturday.
Yeah.
This week, which is insane to me. That's like another thing that makes me feel old is I'm like, oh my God, my son's going to be 2 this weekend. And then I'm having a daughter in June I don't know if I've said that on the podcast yet, but so I was like, that makes me feel old. But what makes me feel older is that we've talked about Max Asmus on this show for 3 years now, or 4 years. It's like the 4th straight March Madness that we were like, you know who you should watch? Max Asmus, because he's awesome. He's kind of a undersized guard. And I think, the other guy that was on that Oral Roberts team, Kevin O'Banner, I believe he's still on Texas Tech. Yeah, current team, Texas Tech Red Raiders. He's 24 years old. He's still playing college basketball.
Yeah.
So they're both still hanging around at different Texas schools now. But that Oral Roberts run was like magical because they were a 15. They beat Ohio State in the first round, which, like, if that's not enough to make you love a team, I don't know what it is. And then they made a couple rounds after that too. They beat Florida in the second round, I believe, with like Trey Mann.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was fun. My next pick is like, I'm going completely off the board from here on out. I got 2 more picks.
Okay.
My next one is Shahada Wells, the guard from McNeese State. I'm going to say that wrong so many times. I keep saying McNeese. It's McNeese. So he's a 6-foot guard. So he's a little bit undersized, but averaged almost 18, 5 and 5 this season with 3 steals per game.
Mm-hmm.
Shoots 50% from 2, 40% from 3. He's in his 6th year of eligibility in college basketball. So he played JUCO for 2 years, went to UT Arlington for a year, transferred to TCU for 2 years, and now he's at McNeese, where he's finally blossomed. He's coming into the tournament 5th in the nation in defensive rating. Mm-hmm. And I like the story. He's an undersized guard. He transferred all over Texas trying to find the right system for him.
Yeah.
And he lands on a really good McNeese team that's a 12 seed, who we're going to talk about. Little spoiler, we're going to talk about them in the next segment as well. But they won 30 games this season, and he led the way. So he's a dude that I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy watching, especially if they're able to go a couple rounds.
My next choice is Rob Dillingham, guard at Kentucky, is just really fun to watch. He has a very visually appealing play style. And he plays for Kentucky. You will most likely have a chance to see him play at least, 2 to 3 games. But he's been pretty damn good. I mean, he's been putting up 15-4, which in 40-minute games is nothing to scoff at. And just kind of making the most out of the talent that is on that Kentucky team, which that is what they do. They just accrue talent.
Yeah, Rob Dillingham is one of the rare NBA prospects who is actually going to be playing in this tournament as a top 10 guy. So Tankathon has him 5th right now behind teammate Reed Shepard, who's also another guard at Kentucky. I just, side note, the funniest freaking thing. If you on Tankathon, if you look up the mock draft, you can click on the players and it shows you a real quick pluses and minuses. The top 3 guys are foreign, and if you click on them, it's all negatives on the right hand side. Everything's a negative, and it's draft age positive. So it's a lot of potential guys. And you click on Rob Dillingham, and it's hey, 3-point percentage is a plus, points is a plus, projected NBA 3-point percentage is a plus, effective field goal percentage is a plus. He fouls a little bit too much, but he actually has some real pluses as opposed to some of the guys in this draft who's I don't know, he's young, it might work.
Yeah.
My final pick for players to watch is, I'm going off the board again, and there's kind of a theme here that you guys will see in the next segment. Jalen House, the guard from New Mexico, son of former NBA player Eddie House. Do you want to feel old? Eddie House has a son who's a senior in college. 6'1" senior guard who is the NCAA's active steals leader for a career. He is described as, and I quote, playing like his finger is permanently stuck in an electrical outlet. He kind of has that Russell Westbrook going 120% all the time, even when it's a horrible idea thing going on. And that's just fun to watch.
It is.
New Mexico has a fun play style. They're coached by Rick Pitino's son, and they play a very frenetic pace going up and down. And he leads the way, and he's just just watch him, man. He just out there 120%, both sides of the ball, impacting offense and defense. He's their best scorer and he's their best defender.
Yeah. So my last one is Dalton Knecht, if I'm saying that right.
Dalton Knecht. I almost picked him too.
Okay. Is that how you pronounce it? Do we know?
I believe it's Connect, but it probably is Knecht, and I'm going to be saying it wrong.
Okay.
It's one of those.
Yeah, it's one of those two. So he played at Northern Colorado the last 2 years and kind of burst onto the scene last year, putting up 20-7 before transferring over to Tennessee this year. And if I remember correctly, he's 23 years old. So he's not going to be a major player in the NBA draft because of that. That and the fact that what I see with him is Klay Thompson if you take out the defense and any sort of lateral agility. But he's that style of offensive player. It's kind of a little bit of a nice throwback, as opposed to the guys who are kind of pounding the air out of the basketball or just shooting a bunch of ISO threes. Yeah, he's an interesting story too. Who most likely will find some sort of home on an NBA roster just because of that skill set. But yeah, I thought he was interesting.
Yeah. Microwave player, too. He had two 39-point performances this year and a 37-point performance
Yeah.
as the SEC's leading scorer. So I like these picks because, like, aside from Rob Dillingham, who's a good pick, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, yeah, these are like college guys who have been here for like 6 years. Like,
Yep.
they're seniors, they're super seniors. It's not like, oh, yeah, this is Zion Williamson. He can jump over a monster truck and do a 360 tomahawk. He's
Mm-hmm.
really good, and he's going to be an NBA superstar
While
next.
being 20 pounds overweight.
Yeah, it's like, this is Shahada Wells. He's played for 6 schools in 6 years. He's 32 and he has a job in IT lined up when he graduates next season. But we're going to watch him in the March Madness, and it's going to be awesome. So our next segment is the moneymaker. You know, we like to show love to the actual players first before we start going into the team stuff, but this is the part that everybody wants to hear. Our favorite upsets for round one of the NCAA tournament, which I refuse to call the first four round one. I was sitting with my dad earlier and he's like, oh, yeah, the first round's on tonight, isn't it? And I was like, it's not. The first round starts at noon on Thursday. You can put as many games before noon on Thursday as you want. It doesn't start the first round of the NCAA tournament. Your cash grab Wednesday and Thursday is not the NCAA tournament's first round. So the first round, the round of 64, whatever you want to call it, these are the upsets that we like. These are the upsets we're picking. Yeah, I had a hard time picking these upsets this year because, like, after last year on the podcast, I swore, I was like, I'm going in next year. I'm picking against Purdue, Arizona, Iowa, Virginia, sight unseen. Fuck those teams. They lose in the first 2 rounds every year. And some of those teams aren't here. I did bet against Virginia last night because they were playing Colorado State, and I was like, Virginia's just going to lose. Whatever first round they're playing in, they're losing. And they did by a lot. So,
yeah,
still easy money, baby. You want to go first or second? I have 2 upsets that I love. Hammering.
Yeah, I'm gonna piss you off with this one.
Don't do it.
I'm gonna take
McNeese. Too late.
I'm gonna take McNeese over Gonzaga.
Yeah, that's not gonna piss me off because that's the first one I have to.
Yeah,
I love this one, but you tell us why.
One, vibes.
Yeah, that's all the analysis.
All vibes, baby.
Vibes, baby.
For one, like, McNeese is actually a really, really good defensive team. They're only giving up 61.5 points per game. While also shooting at a 38.8% clip from 3. That is the makings of an upset maker. Like, if they can play defense and they can hit threes, like, that higher seed had better come extremely well prepared because you're getting their best shot. And I mean, you can go into it more if you want yourself, but like you already mentioned, Shahada Wells. Sometimes you need to have someone that's got a little bit of star power to take over, and they've got a person who can do it.
Yeah, from like a play style on the court, this is a really good matchup for McNeese. So this is another quote. McNeese's goal is to wear teams down with frenetic transition offense and extremely physical, help-heavy defense. Their Achilles heel is that they allow the most 3-point attempts per game in the country. You know what Gonzaga's really bad at this year? Shooting threes. Yeah, they rank 310th in 3-point rate, and they only play 7 guys. So you're going up against like a defense that's going to physically wear you down, beat the shit out of you, and force you to hit threes to win a game, and you're not a good 3-point shooting team.
Yeah.
That's just a tough matchup. The more I read about McNeese, I decided to pick them in the first round, sight unseen. I was like, I don't care who they're playing. I'm taking them to upset whoever they play. And then the matchup also just happened to be good. Do you know who coaches McNeese?
I feel like I should, but I don't.
Yeah, you should. It's a gentleman by the name of Will Wade. For those of you who don't know who Will Wade is, he was fired from LSU, I think 3 or 4 years ago, for recruiting violations because the FBI caught him on a wiretap offering a recruit $250,000 to come to LSU. The comical, ironic thing about this is that with the legalization of NIL,
Yep.
Will Wade was fired not only for doing what is legal now, but literally doing what you have to do now to recruit. Two-face NCAA. They're like, Will Wade's a bad guy. He's cheating. But also, we're going to legalize NIL money. And everybody is taking pages out of Will Wade's textbook, which like every major coach was doing at the time. He's just the one who got caught. So he got fired. But even like, so outside of that whole drama, which is so stupid, he's a really good coach. His career record is 224-99, which is good for a 69.3% winning percentage.
Mm-hmm.
He coached at VCU and had deep tournament runs. He coached at LSU and had deep tournament runs. And then he comes over and takes a McNeese team that's won 22 combined games in the previous 2 seasons. They were like 11-23 both seasons, and they go fucking 30-3. He brings in transfers like Shahada Wells from TCU along with some other guys, and they go 30-3. And 2 of those losses he was suspended for because he still had to serve this stupid bullshit suspension, even though the NIL thing is legal now. So this is his first year back coaching. They went 17-1 with him as the bench boss. They beat Michigan in Michigan this season.
Yeah.
They also had like some other good Power 5 wins and like strong wins against Group of 5 teams. And I think that this is the Will Wade revenge tour. He's going up against Mark Few, who like Gonzaga's had some tournament success, but not a shitload. Like they haven't won a championship. Mark Few is definitely upset prone, and he's an established coach. Yep. And this is the Will Wade revenge tour. Starts with Gonzaga and might not end until like the Elite 8 because this team's really good.
Yeah.
Like I have them in the Sweet 16. I have them going multiple rounds.
I struggled with that. Like I considered doing, and I still might change that, by the way, before tomorrow. But like I knew they were gonna win at least a game.
That, like I said, I had them sight unseen. I was like, this team is going to the Sweet 16. I don't care who they're playing.
Yeah.
So my first upset was McNeese. That was my first pick.
Yeah.
So I'll go to my second pick, which is the second upset that I love. I don't know that we can call this an upset. And you might know what this is already based on the players I pick, but it's 11 seed New Mexico over 6 seed Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that I don't know if we can call this an upset is that New Mexico is favored on FanDuel by 2.5 points.
Yeah.
It's not even by what? It's 2.5 points they're favored by. Clemson is super overseeded, I think, as a 6 seed. I think every year there's like a conference that gets way overseeded and a conference that gets underseeded.
Yeah.
I think the ACC is overseeded going into the tournament. They got North Carolina's a 1. I think Duke's like a 4. Clemson's a 6. Clemson went 11-9 in the ACC and lost in the first round of the ACC tournament to Boston College by a lot. I was looking at like, why is Clemson a 6 seed? They play in the ACC and they beat Alabama 4 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, congratulations. New Mexico is good. And like I said, they're coached by Rick Pitino's son, who's a good coach, struggled like the last couple of years at Minnesota, but like it's Minnesota. So
yeah.
It's a good team. Again, another team that plays good defense, shoots the 3 ball well, led by Jalen House. So I don't know. I looked at this. I'm like, God, they're the only team that's an 11 seed or higher who's favored in their first round matchup. So I don't know if it's technically an upset, but that's my pick. And
That's kind of where you start getting into some gray area, but I had that one as well.
I mean, it's an
So
11 over a 6. So by NCAA standards, it's more than 4 seeds away, which makes it an upset. New Mexico is another team I have going into the Sweet 16. So I have New Mexico beating Clemson and then beating Baylor. And I have McNeese beating Gonzaga. Uh, and then I can't tell you who I have McNeese beating second because that's going to be my final upset that I'm going to read off. So let's go to your upset.
so my last one, I am taking Duquesne over BYU.
Mm. It's like the
Uh,
second game of the tourney,
yep.
early one.
I mean, again, there's a vibes thing there. Weirdly enough, despite playing in the Atlantic 10, like Duquesne had the 15th hardest strength of schedule this year, which is pretty insane to think about. Um, on top of that, they're another pretty good defensive team. They only give up 66 points per game. How a team is playing coming into the tournament is important, and Duquesne has won 9 of their last 10 to BYU's 6 of their last 10.
Mm.
One of these teams is clearly playing a little bit more clean right now than the other, and I expect that to kind of play itself out on the court.
Yeah, this is why I said bring 3 because I didn't list Duquesne as one of my upsets, but I do have Duquesne beating BYU. Yeah. And then we both picked McNeese. I'm like, I knew we were going to have some overlap. So that's why we brought multiple. So like I said, I have McNeese going to the Sweet 16, beating Gonzaga. I also have McNeese beating Samford in the second round, which means in the first round, I have Samford beating Kansas. My fear about this pick, and like so I listed my 2, like McNeese and New Mexico are like I love these. I already bet on them. I will sign them in blood. The Samford pick, the thing that worries me is that I think today and tomorrow, more and more people are going to be picking Samford in their brackets and betting on Samford because Kansas, one, has not been great this year already. They finished the season 7-8 in their last 15 games, including losing 4 of their last 5 and losing in the Big 12 tournament to Cincinnati by 20. Today, they announced that their best player, Kevin McCullough, is going to be out for the rest of the season with a knee problem. Their second best player, Hunter Dickinson, transfer from Michigan, missed the Big 12 tournament with a dislocated shoulder. And now Bill Self is like, yeah, well, he looks good in practice. It's like, dude, he just dislocated his fucking shoulder. You're telling me he's going to come back from that and be 100%?
Oh, yeah.
Hell no. So you're missing you're missing your best player. Your second best player is either going to be missing or definitely not 100%. And I didn't like Kansas before, even when they were at full strength, because they were, like you said, it matters how you play coming into the tournament, and they were not playing well at all. So they're prime for an upset. Samford's a good team too. Like they shoot the 3 ball well. Like Samford's offense is going to shock some people that have not looked into them so far. So I do have them winning, and then I have the 12-13 McNeese versus Samford in the second round, which is going to be like my favorite game of the second round if that happens, because I love it when the 4 and the 5 both lose. So like in the Samford pick is not a pick I mind missing if Kansas does win, because I don't think Kansas is going very far after that. The ones that I have a really hard time with is like, I was looking at the 15 and the 16 seeds and being like, do I want to pick one? Because the last couple of years, like we've seen more of those than we'd ever seen before.
Yeah.
What I kind of landed on is I didn't pick any 15 or 16 seeds to win in the first round. But if I was going to pick a 2 seed to go down, a 1 or a 2 seed, I would probably pick Iowa State They weren't ranked super high coming into the season. They weren't
Yeah.
ranked for like a large portion of the season. And then they started playing really well. They play good defense, but the offense is really spotty. So like they don't blow teams out. I don't trust South Dakota State enough to like pick them to beat Iowa State. But like that's the type of pick that I have trouble making, because if you pick it and you miss it, that bottom half of the East is like pretty weak with Illinois as the 3. And there's a good chance that like Iowa State does make it to the Elite 8 or something, just based on the fact that like there's not a whole lot of great teams down there. And then you like really fucked up. So like
Yeah.
Kansas, I don't see like Kansas is not beating Samford and McNeese, I don't think. And even if they do, they're going to have like Purdue waiting for them. So like Kansas is not going far. So I have no problem picking against Kansas.
There's some risk there with that pick. There's always some risk with every pick, though. There's enough logic there and evidence to back it up. So
it's a pick I feel good about that one. But like like I said, the first two are like boom. They're like some of the first things I did when filling out the bracket, because I love those picks. And then the rest of my upsets are like, okay, like I could see this happening, I could see that happening, kind of thing.
Yeah. My last one, I'm taking James Madison over Wisconsin.
Okay, that's actually that's the first one we've named that we don't both have, because I have Wisconsin.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Like, I feel like at this point, when in doubt, bet against the Big Ten. Like, it's a pretty safe bet at this point. It's another team that, like, I'm gonna say they're like a great defensive team, but they play decent defense. But like you look at like where these teams are coming into the tournament. Wisconsin 5-5, James Madison 10-0. Which of these two teams do you think is less likely to make the crucial turnover in a close and late game? I'm gonna not trust Wisconsin because they quite frankly haven't given a whole lot of reason to trust themselves all year. I mean, they barely won more than half of their Big Ten games, and James Madison has won 31 games. They've lost 3 games all year. Like, they play good basketball.
I think James Madison has the most wins of any team in the field.
Yeah.
There's 3 teams that won 30, Houston, James Madison, and McNeese.
Yeah.
I think James Madison has 31 wins, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good pick. I have Wisconsin. My one vibes-based pick is I have Oregon going really far. Like farther than I should, and I think I'll regret that when South Carolina beats them in the first round. But like I have Oregon in the Elite 8 as an 11 seed, because we talked about teams being overseeded. The Pac-12 is notoriously underseeded in a lot of areas, and Oregon has had multiple deep NCAA tournament runs within like the last 5 to 6 years. So I have them. I have some second round upsets. I have New Mexico beating Baylor in the second round, Oregon over Creighton. I have the first 1 seed I have going out is North Carolina losing to Michigan State, which maybe it's too much faith in Tom Izzo because we're Michigan based.
I actually have that one as well.
Do you?
Okay. There. Yeah. That is like that might be that's like one of like maybe 2 Big Ten teams that I pick to win. Like
that's fair.
A singular game.
A singular game. That's it. You get Purdue beating a 16 seed and Michigan State beating North Carolina, and that's it. That's all you get. All right. So speaking of deep tournament runs, the Final Four and championship picks. So it's time for me to say the thing. I say the thing on the podcast every year, and this is how I pick my Final Four. There is a statistical profile that can tell us who will win the national championship. It can narrow that. Last year, I think it narrowed it down to like 4 teams, including UConn, who was our eventual national champion.
Yep.
This year we have 3 teams. So the criteria: every champion since 2002 was top 57 in KenPom offensive efficiency, top 37 in KenPom defensive efficiency, and every champion except for one was top 21 in offensive efficiency. That one was the Kemba Walker led UConn team, which is a freak accident that will never happen again. One time thing. So they kind of like tier the teams. Tier 1 is like the teams that are top 21 in offensive efficiency. Tier 2 is like the top 57 to include that UConn team. No team has ever won the national championship after losing in the first round of their conference tournament. No first-time coach has ever won a national championship. Every champ since 1990 has come from a conference that has 4 or more tournament teams. Every champ since 2004 was top 12 in the week 6 AP poll. All of that being said, there are 3 teams who can win the national championship this year. It is Houston, it is Arizona, and it is Purdue. And so my final 4, it is Houston, it is Arizona, and it is Purdue. And I threw Auburn in there because Auburn is a tier 2 national championship team. The one massive caveat this year to this profile is that we have had more bid stealers this year. Smaller teams that get like an automatic bid based on winning their conference tournament who would not have otherwise made this field. We've had more bid stealers this year than almost any year in NCAA tournament history. So UConn and Marquette were left off of the teams that could win the national championship list for this criteria. And the only reason they were left off is because the Big East only has 3 teams in the tournament. And they easily would have had 4 if we didn't have all these automatic qualifiers. So if there was any year that this criteria was going to be broken, it would be this year with either UConn or Marquette, because they not only check every other box, but they like smash every other box. Like those 2 teams are really good. So those are good picks as well. And then Auburn, I think missed one criteria. So I threw them in just because I have 2 1 seeds and a 2 seed. And I was like, okay, I don't think we're going to have 3 1s and a 2. So I threw a 4 in there. It's a lot of talking to say I fucked myself by putting Purdue and Arizona in my final 4. It's just not a good idea.
Yeah. Arizona is a lot more forgivable than Purdue, I feel like.
I'm Purdueing it.
Yeah.
New fouled out shirt. We're Purdueing it.
So I came down to UConn, Arizona. Although that didn't feel good either. Houston and Creighton. Now I could have, because I went a little bit back and forth on UConn and Auburn when they matched up in my bracket. So I could see Auburn getting in there as well.
Yeah, I had that exact same. I have UConn and Auburn, and I picked Auburn because I was like, I have too many 1 seeds already. Okay, so we only have 1 team in common, and it's Arizona.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you something about Arizona. Do you know what happened the last time I picked Arizona to win the national championship?
They lost in the first round.
They lost to fucking Buffalo. Which should have told us everything that we ever need to know about DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, for real.
That's everything you need to know. So that was 2018. I picked Arizona to win the national championship. And everybody in my work pool was like, oh man, Adam knows so much about sports. Wonder who he's going to pick. And I was like, I picked Arizona. They're a 4 seed, but I think they can do it. They lost by 21, 89-68 in the first round to Buffalo, then proceeded to not make the tournament until 2022, where they lost in the Sweet 16 to Houston. And then they come back last year and lose to 15 seed Princeton. So you say it's more forgivable than Purdue, but what I'm going to tell you is
I didn't hear any 16s.
I know, but they're another team that's going to Screw you. The
Oh
problem is
yeah,
they never play a 16. They're never a 1 seed. Or I'm sure they would
yeah,
have done it. They lost
fair.
to a 15, a 13, in 11. They lost to Wichita
Yeah,
State during Wichita State's big run.
I can remember years in the past where Arizona has made deep runs.
Yes. No, if
I
you go back,
cannot remember a deep Purdue run.
yeah, that's a tough one. If you go back further, they definitely made deep runs. No team west of Texas has won a national championship since 1997. Arizona was the last team to do it in 1997, led by superstar point guard Mike Bibby. Hell yeah. My fucking boy. My favorite NBA player ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Most people, you're like, oh, you grew up in the 1990s and 2000s. Who's your favorite NBA player? And people are like, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter. None of your favorite NBA players have the balls that mine does to hit the game winner in Sacramento against the LA Lakers, Kobe Bryant and Shaq in game 5 of the Western Conference Finals when I was 12. We don't talk about what happened after that, but that's what happened in
Right.
game 5. That's my fucking boy. That was a good team though.
Yeah.
Man, it was a good team.
Man,
But you look at
they
those, I mean, for real though, it's like the two best players on that team, Mike Bibby, Jason Terry.
yeah.
Natty, book it. So what's your national championship game and what's your pick?
At this point, I kind of just was like, fuck it, I don't know, and just picked random teams. Because I mean, it's all gonna be tits up by like the Sweet 16. So whatever.
What do you mean you have TCU over St. Mary's? They weren't even in your final four. I said random teams, damn it.
Yeah, fully random teams. I went with UConn and Houston for my natty, and I said UConn, but I could be convinced of literally any of the other three teams. So
Yeah, that'd be impressive. That'd be back to back for UConn,
yeah,
which
I gotta say, like Arizona has fallen a long way from when they were like the best producer of guards
mm,
for in all of basketball. Like you obviously Bibby, right? But like
I was gonna say they have Mike Bibby. They have the GOAT.
Steve Kerr, Jason Terry, Damon Stoudemire, there's a bunch of other guys too. Yeah, it was just like every year they were putting out like every like 3 to 4 years there was another guy that like was like a starting level point guard for like 20
Will
years straight.
Will Bynum?
Yeah, I did love me some Will Bynum.
I did too. I mean, we're talking about starting level guys. Yeah, the list of guys who even if we're going outside point guard, I mean TJ McConnell went there too.
Yeah, TJ McConnell went there.
Richard Jefferson, Andre
Yep.
Iguodala,
Yep, the Goodell.
Aaron Gordon, Channing Frye. I
Yeah.
mentioned Will Bynum. DeAndre Ayton went there and fucking let me down when I picked him to
Yeah.
win the Natty.
Yeah.
That was when I knew. I was like, who else is in this draft? And then I saw Luka Doncic for the first time, and I was like, oh, the savior. He's here. The Sacramento Kings are going to pick him. I'm not getting back into that. Okay, I have something extremely disturbing to tell you. I was going to make a bigger deal out of this, but we got to sign off soon. I have Purdue winning the national championship. I did it. I'm going to say that they have the Virginia type run where they lose to the 16 seed and come back fueled by that. And that Zach Edey gets one to end his college career and does not go out as like the best player to ever not make an Elite Eight or something
Okay.
like that.
And how much drugs did you have to do to convince yourself of that?
Oh, so many drugs. First, I had Grambling State beating Purdue, and I was like, wait, what if they won the whole thing? I'm not comfortable with it, but the statistics say 3 teams can win, and Purdue is one of them. So I want those 3 teams going as far as possible. And once you get to the end, it's like I came into this wanting to pick Houston. I feel like everybody that is like in the pools that I'm in is going to have like Houston or UConn or something. And I was like, I'm going to be different, and I'm either going to win all the pools or I'm going to crash and burn and like be sitting here next week recording with you. Like, why did you let me do that? We sat on a podcast together and you let me pick Purdue.
Nope. I'm telling you now, don't pick Purdue.
Also in my bracket,
unpick Purdue.
I don't know if I did this on purpose, but I have Purdue beating a 16, a 9, a 12, and an 11 on their way to the Final Four, where they got to play Houston. So, which Houston was my original pick before the bracket came out. I was like, I'm taking Houston just because I'm super impressed that like they went from playing in the American Conference to the Big 12 this season. And they were just like, yeah, we're still going to win 30 games. Fuck it. Yeah. Who cares? Doesn't matter what the level of competition is.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah.
Hey, we also like missed probably like the best of the guards that we could have named. Agent Zero.
We already named Mike Bibby. Who else we got to name?
Gilbert Arenas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew there was a big one we were missing.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling down the list of NBA players who went to Arizona.
Yeah.
And it's in alphabetical order. So Gilbert Arenas is like at the top next to DeAndre Ayton. And I saw Ayton and I just started skipping down because I'm not reading that one first. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. Jared Bayless also. And Leon Blevins. If anybody knows who Leon Blevins is, please contact me. I'll give you $5. Laurie Markkinen, Benedict Mathurin.
Aaron Gordon go there too?
Yep, Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
Laurie Markkinen, Benedict Mathurin.
Yep.
Zeke Naji had a minute in the league too. Just 2 other notes on the NCAA tournament I want to mention before we sign off. So just fun stories. Long Beach State plays Arizona in the first round. At the end of the regular season, Long Beach State fired their head coach after losing 5 straight games to end the season and said, if you want to, you can coach the conference tournament and that'll be like your goodbye to being Long Beach State coach. Fucking wins the conference tournament and goes to the NCAA tournament. I'm 100% waiting for this dude to beat Arizona in the first round and just be like, fuck me now. Second kind of fun story. Nebraska's athletic director left them to go to Texas A&M like recently in the last couple months. And now Nebraska plays Texas A&M in the first round. So I took Nebraska in that. I was like 100% Nebraska's winning this one.
You have to at that point. You really do.
I know. So
those are the rules.
It is. But that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Twitter at Fouled Out Sports. You can find Matt on Twitter at Matador_defense. Whether you want to go into the cesspool or not, that's your prerogative.
Yeah.
You can email us at fouledoutsports@gmail.com. And you can find our videos on TikTok. Probably some kind of video this week about Arizona basketball with all the Mike Bibby talk. Fouled Out Sports Podcast. On TikTok, it's a long name, but you can't miss it. I am happy the NCAA tournament is here. I said in the open that there's like a little lull in the sports calendar between the Super Bowl and now, although them backing the Super Bowl up like a week kind of helped with that.
Yeah.
And we had NFL free agency and we had a couple fun basketball podcasts, but this week, next week, the week after, March Madness until it's over. Then April, boom, NFL draft, My Guys podcast, Biggest Storylines podcast,
Questionable
Prospects podcast, mock draft. Our friends from Certified Beef were not able to make it to this podcast due to scheduling conflicts, which scheduling's hard, man.
Yep.
I totally get it. No problem. They are going to come on during NFL draft season to help us break some of that stuff down. They're big Minnesota Vikings fans. Brandon and I had a text exchange about JJ McCarthy, which I feel like that's all I talk about anytime anybody brings up the NFL draft. Is just like JJ fucking McCarthy. I don't know why I always go there. Probably because I'm going to meme him into being the Patriots' next quarterback. And then last thing, I mentioned this earlier, but my son's birthday is on Saturday. So happy birthday to Maddox. Happy Maddox's birthday to Marley.
Happy Maddox Day.
Yeah. I said this on his first birthday on this podcast last year. Same podcast. It was like the March Madness podcast. Having a wife who's as awesome as mine and who does so much with our son makes being a parent so much easier and so much more fun. So thank you for that. Yeah. Happy Maddox's birthday to everybody on Saturday. Woo!
Yeah.
Great day.
Everyone celebrate Maddox Day.
Yes. But all right, everybody, this podcast comes out probably right when the tournament starts, which admittedly not the best time for an NCAA tournament podcast, like as you're turning it on, but like you can listen to it and watch Michigan State versus Mississippi State, which is the first game at 12:15. And I feel like we covered enough like general stuff for the weekend and beyond.
You can hear us say the wrong things as they're happening.
Someone's going to be like watching Purdue lose to Grambling State, just pick that stupid bastard.
Poor unfortunate soul.
Yeah. So enjoy the first weekend of the tournament. Matt and I will be back next week, next week, Thursday. Yeah. This comes out on Thursdays. I'm going to keep messing that up. To break down the Elite Eight, Sweet 16, and kind of everything that we saw from the first week. So until then, my friend, I'll talk to you later.
Yep. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, Robin.